Thank you. Thanks for holding this hearing, and to the ranking member also. And for those on the panel, thank you very much for taking time being with us today. For too long, Nevada's and America's small businesses and companies have been at a competitive disadvantage due to our outdated and unfair tax code. A Nevada business owner recently told me that our tax system makes it difficult for him to compete. Another Nevadan wrote me and said that we need to fix our tax code in order to attract businesses to our country, drive up wages for American workers. Our current tax code distorts the marketplace, drags down the economy, prevents American job creators from staying and hiring at home. Just last month, I hosted Treasury Secretary Mnuchin at a tax reform roundtable in my home state of Nevada. There we met with some of the Silver State's top job creators, and time again we heard the same thing. Nevada needs lower tax rates on its businesses. Lower rates means a faster growing economy, increased international competitiveness. Lower rates will also mean more jobs, better jobs, and higher wages, all of which the middle class desperately needs right now. Just last week, it was announced that Nevada leads the nation in private job sector job growth at 3.6%. And imagine what our state, and for that matter, the country, if we unleashed and delivered on tax relief. So after 8 years of historically low growth under the previous administration, it's time to get our economy back on track, help our workers and small businesses win on the international playing field. So I look forward to working with all my colleagues here as we move forward on business tax and individual tax relief. I want to speak real briefly here on corporate tax rate and its impact on labor. And Mr. Hodges, I missed your opening testimony, but I'm assuming you talked about this a little bit. The empirical evidence suggests that workers bear a sizable percentage, at least 45% of the corporate tax burden. Is that an accurate comment?
Yes. In fact, we have a paper coming out in the next week or so surveying the economic literature, and it shows that a substantial portion of the corporate tax does fall on workers in some fashion, roughly about half. And in some cases, it can be as much as 100%. For instance, if the factory that I work for moves from Dublin, Ohio to Dublin, Ireland, take advantage of the Irish 12.5% corporate tax rate, I've borne 100% of that differential between the Irish rate and the United States rate. So corporate taxation can have an overwhelming influence on hiring and wages, and the economic literature shows that pretty clearly.
I have a table here that comes from your organization, and I quote on it, says, it shows that a 20% corporate tax rate would lift after-tax incomes by an average of 3.5%. Do you stand behind that?
Yes, our model shows that, and it's because the combination of the economic growth and the increase in productivity will ultimately lift both wages and after-tax income.
Your model also estimates that the combination of a 20% corporate tax rate and full expensing would boost after-tax income by an average of 5.2%. Do you still stand behind that?
Yes, absolutely.
Can you expand on any of this information? And what we're trying to do is get to individual relief, tax relief. How can we boost an individual's home income, take-home income, by perhaps a tax policy that works for all Americans? And starting here with these numbers that you show in this model.
Well, tax relief for individuals is important, but if you haven't had a raise in more than a decade, a tax cut doesn't really benefit you. What we want to do is have policies that lift wages, lift productivity, and ultimately lift after-tax incomes, real living standards. And the kind of tax reform that we've outlined here with a lower corporate tax rate and full expensing will do that. And I think that that's the strongest approach to making people better off.
What would the average household prefer? A tax cut or a raise in income?
Well, I think most people want a tax cut. They don't really see the connection between corporate tax reform and the improvement in their daily lives. And we need to convince them that ultimately corporate tax reform will boost their standard of living in the long term. It's just a hard sell.
Yeah, Mr. Hodges, thank you. Mr. Chairman, thank you for my time.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Thune.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.